Welcome, dear listener, to a journey through time unlike any other. As you settle in for a restful slumber, allow yourself to be transported to a world so ancient, so alien, yet so fascinating that it defies the imagination. Before we embark on this prehistoric adventure, I invite you to pause for a moment and share in the comments where in the world you are listening from and what time of day it is for you. It's a wonder of our modern age that we can connect across vast distances and time zones, all while exploring a past so distant that it preceded human existence by millions upon millions of years. And if you find yourself enjoying these calm paleontological meanderings, I encourage you to subscribe so that you can drift off to sleep with a bit of boring natural history whenever the mood strikes. But for now, let us leave the present behind and allow ourselves to slip into a very different time and place indeed. Imagine, if you will, that you are waking up not in your comfortable modern bed, but on a bed of soft ferns in a world that existed long before the first human ever drew breath. The air is warm and humid, thick with moisture and the rich scent of vegetation. Around you tower plants unlike anything in your modern world, massive tree ferns stretching toward a hazy sky, cycads with their strange crown-like fronds and conifers of impossible height and girth. You might feel a moment of disorientation, a sense that something is profoundly different, and indeed it is. For somehow, through some strange twist of fate or dream, you have found yourself transported not just through space but through vast epochs of time itself, to the age when dinosaurs ruled the earth. But an opportunity to witness the majesty of life in its most spectacular forms, to walk among creatures that once dominated our planet for over 160 million years, to see a world so lush and vibrant that it seems like something from the most fantastic of dreams, and all from the comfort and safety of your own bed. So take a deep breath. Let your body relax into the mattress and allow your mind to drift back through millions of years to a time of giants and wonders, of forests that stretched from pole to pole, and of creatures so magnificent that they seem almost too extraordinary to have been real. You blink your eyes open to find yourself lying on a carpet of primitive plants, their textures rough and unfamiliar beneath your hands. The air shimmers with heat and humidity, and the sky above is a peculiar shade of orange-pink, tinted by atmospheric conditions that no human has ever breathed. This is the Triassic period, some 250 million years ago, and you are witnessing the dawn of the age of dinosaurs. Around you stretches a landscape that seems both alien and strangely beautiful. The plants are unlike anything from your modern world, and no grass exists yet. No flowers bloom in colorful profusion. Instead, the ground is carpeted with ferns, mosses, and small cycads. Tall conifers dot the landscape, their straight trunks reaching toward the sky like ancient pillars. In the distance, you can see strange bulbous plants that look almost like giant bottle brushes. These are the early seed ferns, experiments in plant evolution that will eventually give way to more familiar forms. The silence is profound, broken only by the distant splash of water and the rustle of vegetation in the warm breeze. This is a world still recovering from the greatest extinction event in Earth's history, the Permian-Triassic extinction that wiped out 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrates. Life is rebuilding itself, experimenting with new forms, new ways of living. As you sit up and look around, you notice movement in the underbrush. A small lizard-like creature about the size of a house cat emerges from behind a fallen log. This is Legosuchus, one of the earliest dinosaur relatives, though it doesn't look much like the mighty beasts that will dominate later eras. Its legs are positioned directly beneath its body rather than sprawling out to the sides like a lizard's, and it moves with a quick, bird-like gait that seems almost modern compared to the lumbering reptiles of earlier times. You watch, fascinated, as the little creature investigates its surroundings, occasionally rising up on its hind legs to get a better view. This bipedal posture is revolutionary for its time. Most other reptiles are still bound to moving on all fours, but this little pioneer is experimenting with something new, something that will eventually lead to the towering carnivores and swift hunters of later ages. The warmth of the Triassic sun beats down on your shoulders as you explore this ancient world. The climate is remarkably uniform across the globe. There are no ice caps at the poles, and even the Arctic regions enjoy tropical warmth. This greenhouse world is perfect for reptilian life, and you can sense the potential that hangs in the air like the humidity itself. In a nearby stream, you spot something that makes your heart race with excitement. Partially submerged in the muddy water is a creature about the size of a large dog, but with a distinctly dinosaurian appearance. This is Eoraptor, one of the very first true dinosaurs, though it's still small and unassuming compared to the giants that will follow. Its name means dawn thief, and as you watch it hunt for small fish and amphibians in the shallow water, you're witnessing the humble beginnings of a dynasty that will rule the earth for the next 160 million years. The Eoraptor moves with surprising grace, its long tail helping it balance as it steps carefully through the water. Its hands are equipped with grasping claws, and its eyes are bright and alert. There's something almost bird-like about its movements, a quick intelligence that sets it apart from the more sluggish reptiles of its time. As the day progresses and the heat becomes more intense, you seek shelter beneath the broad fronds of a tree fern. The shade is welcome, and you have time to contemplate the world around you. This is a planet in transition, a world where the future is being written in the DNA of small, seemingly insignificant creatures that dart through the underbrush. The Triassic is not yet the age of giants that will come later. This is instead the age of experimentation, of evolution testing new forms and new ways of life. The largest land animals are still the archosaurs, relatives of modern crocodiles, some of which have grown to impressive sizes. But the future belongs to the small bipedal creatures you've been watching, the early dinosaurs that will inherit the earth. As evening falls and the air begins to cool slightly, you hear new sounds echoing through the landscape. In the distance, the deep bellow of some large creature, perhaps one of the early archosaurs, reverberates across the wetlands. Closer by, the high-pitched calls of early pterosaurs, the first vertebrates to achieve powered flight, echo from the treetops. You settle back against the soft ferns as darkness falls over this primordial world. Somewhere in the darkness, the future is taking shape, though it will be millions of years before the small creatures around you evolve into the magnificent giants that will define the age of dinosaurs. If carried forward by the gentle current of time itself, you find yourself awakening in a world transformed. The harsh, experimental landscape of the Triassic has given way to something lusher, more familiar, yet still wonderfully alien. This is the Jurassic period, some 180 million years ago, and the age of dinosaurs has truly begun. You open your eyes to find yourself lying in a grove of towering conifers, their trunks so massive that a dozen people holding hands could barely encircle them. The air is even warmer and more humid than before, thick with moisture and the rich green scent of growing things. Above you, the canopy forms a living cathedral, with shafts of golden sunlight filtering down through the needles and fronds. The plant life around you has exploded in diversity and size. Cycads grow in profusion, their palm-like fronds creating an almost tropical feel. Tree ferns tower overhead, some reaching heights of 30 feet or more. And everywhere you look, there are conifers, not just the familiar pine and spruce shapes, but strange and wonderful variations, including some with broad flat needles and others with peculiar branching patterns that create natural umbrellas of green. But it's not the plants that make your breath catch in your throat. The sound that rolls across the landscape like distant thunder, a deep resonant call that seems to vibrate in your chest, a sound so profound and alien that it takes you a moment to realize what you're hearing. This is the voice of a giant, one of the long-necked sauropods that have come to define the Jurassic landscape. As you sit up and look around, movement in the distance catches your eye. At first it's just a dark shape moving between the trees, but as it emerges into a clearing, your mind struggles to process what you're seeing. It's a creature of impossible proportions, a living mountain of flesh and bone that moves with surprising grace despite its enormous size. This is Brachiosaurus, one of the largest land animals that has ever lived. Standing nearly 40 feet tall at the shoulder and stretching over 80 feet from nose to tail, it moves through the forest like a gentle giant, its long neck allowing it to browse on vegetation far above the ground. You watch in wonder as it strips leaves from the high branches of conifers, its movements deliberate and peaceful. The ground trembles slightly with each step the giant takes, a reminder of the sheer mass of these creatures. Yet there's something almost balletic about the way it moves, the long neck swaying gracefully as it searches for the best feeding spots, the massive tail serving as a counterbalance to keep the enormous body stable. As you watch the Brachiosaurus feed, you become aware of other sounds around you. The forest is alive with activity, though much of it is hidden from view. You hear the calls of other dinosaurs echoing through the trees, the musical hoots of hadrosaurs, the sharp barks of smaller predators, and the deep rumbles of other sauropods somewhere in the distance. Moving carefully through the underbrush, you make your way toward a clearing where you hope to get a better view of this Jurassic world. As you emerge from the trees, you're greeted by a sight that takes your breath away. Spread out before you is a vast plain dotted with herds of dinosaurs, a scene of such natural majesty that it seems like something from the most fantastic of dreams. In the distance, a group of Diplodocus moves slowly across the landscape, their incredibly long necks and tails creating flowing lines against the horizon. These are among the longest land animals that ever lived, with some species reaching lengths of over 100 feet from nose to tail tip. They move in a loose herd, their necks swaying gently as they search for low-growing plants to eat. Closer to you, a small group of Stegosaurus browses on the ferns and cycads. These armored herbivores are about the size of large elephants, but with distinctive rows of triangular plates running down their backs and fearsome spikes adorning their tails. Despite their formidable appearance, they seem peaceful and unhurried as they go about their feeding. The Stegosaurus move with a peculiar gait, their front legs being significantly shorter than their rear legs, giving them a distinctive hunched appearance. Their heads are small in proportion to their bodies, and you can see them working their jaws methodically as they process the tough plant material that makes up their diet. As you watch these magnificent creatures, you're struck by the realization that you're witnessing something that no human has ever seen: mindless dinosaurs alive in their natural habitat, going about their daily routines in a world that belongs entirely to them. The sense of privilege is overwhelming, as if you've been granted access to the most exclusive show on Earth. The day wears on, and you find a comfortable spot beneath a large cycad where you can observe the dinosaurs without disturbing them. The heat is intense, but there's a constant breeze that carries the sense of the Jurassic world, the rich smell of vegetation, the earthy odor of damp soil, and something else, something wild and primitive, that speaks of a world untouched by human influence. As afternoon turns to evening, you witness one of the most spectacular sights in natural history. A small pack of Allosaurus emerges from the forest at the edge of the plain. These are the apex predators of the Jurassic, powerful carnivores standing about 12 feet tall and measuring up to 30 feet in length. Their appearance sends a ripple of tension through the herds of herbivores, but this is not the chaotic bloodbath that popular media might suggest. Instead, you watch a careful dance of predator and prey. The Allosaurus move with purpose but without haste, their intelligent eyes scanning the herds for signs of weakness, an injured animal, a young one separated from its parents, an elderly individual struggling to keep up. The herbivores, for their part, are not helpless victims. The adult Stegosaurus form a protective circle around their young, their spiked tails swishing menacingly. The massive sauropods use their size as a deterrent, the adults positioning themselves between the predators and any vulnerable members of their group. You watch, fascinated, as this ancient drama plays out. The Allosaurus test the defenses of the herds, probing for weaknesses, while the herbivores maintain their vigilant watch. It's a game that has been played for millions of years, a delicate balance between hunter and hunted that has shaped the evolution of both predator and prey. As darkness falls over the Jurassic landscape, the sounds of the ancient world take on a new character. The calls of the dinosaurs become more varied and complex, contact calls between herd members, warning cries from sentries, and the deep, resonant communications of the giant sauropods that can carry for miles across the landscape. You settle in for the night, lulled by the sounds of this ancient world. Somewhere in the darkness, a small theropod calls out with a series of chirps and whistles that sound remarkably bird-like, a reminder that these creatures are in fact the ancestors of modern birds. The thought is both humbling and wonderful, connecting you across millions of years to the world you know. As you slowly awaken, you immediately sense that something fundamental has changed in the world around you. The air carries new scents, sweeter and more complex than anything you've experienced in the earlier periods. This is the Cretaceous period, some 100 million years ago, and you are about to witness one of the most important revolutions in the history of life on Earth. Opening your eyes, you find yourself surrounded by a riot of color that seems almost impossible after the predominantly green worlds of the Triassic and Jurassic. Flowers bloom everywhere you look, delicate white blossoms on early magnolia trees, bright yellow buttercup-like flowers carpeting the forest floor, and strange primitive roses climbing up the trunks of conifers. This is the age of flowering plants. The angiosperms and their arrival has transformed the planet in ways both subtle and profound. The forest around you is more diverse and complex than anything you've seen before. The conifers are still present, but they now share space with the first deciduous trees, iris leaf forms of oak, maple, and walnut that will eventually dominate temperate forests around the world. The understory is rich with flowering shrubs and herbs, creating a layered ecosystem of incredible complexity. But perhaps most remarkably, the air around you hums with new forms of life. Insects dart between the flowers in a dance of pollination that represents one of nature's most successful partnerships. You watch as primitive bees, their bodies fuzzy with pollen, move from bloom to bloom, inadvertently ensuring the reproduction of the plants while gathering nectar for themselves. Butterflies with iridescent wings flutter through the dappled sunlight, their presence adding splashes of living color to an already vibrant world. As you stand and begin to explore this transformed landscape, you quickly realize that the dinosaurs too have changed. The long-necked giants of the Jurassic are still present, but they now share the world with an incredible diversity of new forms, each one more perfectly adapted to their environment than their predecessors. In a nearby clearing, you encounter your first Cretaceous herbivore mice, a Triceratops, one of the most iconic dinosaurs ever to walk the earth. Standing about 10 feet tall and 30 feet long with its distinctive three-horned face and massive bony frill, it's an imposing sight as it uses its powerful beak to crop the flowering plants around its feet. The Triceratops moves with a kind of dignified grace, its massive head swaying slightly as it selects the choicest blossoms and leaves. You're struck by how different its feeding behavior is from the high-browsing sauropods of the Jurassic. This creature is perfectly adapted for ground-level feeding, its low-slung head and powerful jaws allowing it to process the tough stems and fibrous leaves of the new flowering plants. As you watch the Triceratops feed, you hear a sound that sends a chill down your spine, a deep, rumbling roar that speaks of power and menace. Through the trees at the edge of the clearing steps a creature that embodies every childhood nightmare and wonder about dinosaurs. This is Tyrannosaurus rex, the undisputed king of the Cretaceous predators. Standing 20 feet tall and measuring 40 feet from nose to tail, the T-Rex is a mountain of muscle and bone designed for one purpose: hunting and killing the largest herbivores of its time. Its massive head, nearly 6 feet long, is armed with teeth the size of bananas, each one perfectly designed for crushing bone and tearing flesh. Its tiny arms, so often mocked in popular culture, are actually incredibly strong, each one capable of lifting over 400 pounds. But what strikes you most about the T-Rex is not its size or its fearsome weaponry, it's the intelligence in its eyes. This is not a mindless killing machine, but a sophisticated predator with complex behaviors and social structures. As you watch, it surveys the clearing with the calculating gaze of an apex predator. The Triceratops has also noticed the arrival of the great predator. Rather than fleeing in panic, it turns to face the threat, lowering its massive head so that its 3 sharp horns point directly at. For several tense minutes, predator and prey face each other across the flower-filled clearing. The T-Rex tilts its massive head, studying the defensive posture of the Triceratops, while the herbivore maintains its threatening stance, ready to charge if necessary. It's a standoff that speaks to millions of years of evolutionary arms race, each species perfectly adapted to counter the strategies of the other. In the end, the T-Rex decides that this particular Triceratops is too healthy and too well positioned to make an easy target. With a dismissive snort that sends a cloud of moisture into the warm air, the great predator turns and melts back into the forest, its footsteps causing the ground to tremble slightly as it searches for easier prey. The encounter leaves you with a profound sense of having witnessed something truly special, a moment of genuine interaction between two of the most famous dinosaurs that ever lived. But as the tension ebbs and normal forest sounds resume, you're reminded that this is just one small drama in an ecosystem of incredible complexity and beauty. Moving deeper into the Cretaceous world, you discover that the diversity of dinosaur life has exploded far beyond anything seen in earlier periods. You encounter Parasaurolophus, duck-billed dinosaurs with elaborate hollow crests that function as natural musical instruments, their haunting calls echoing through the forest like the songs of primordial birds. You see Ankylosaurus, living tanks covered in bony armor and sporting massive clubs at the ends of their tails, browsing peacefully on the low-growing flowers. In the trees above, small feathered dinosaurs dart from branch to branch, their colorful plumage rivaling any modern bird. These are the dromaeosaurs, the famous raptors of popular culture, though seeing them in their natural habitat reveals them to be far more bird-like than the movies suggest. They use their sickle-shaped claws not primarily as weapons, but as climbing aids, allowing them to navigate the complex three-dimensional world of the Cretaceous forest canopy. As you continue your exploration, you come upon a riverbank where one of the most spectacular sights of the Cretaceous world unfolds before you. A massive Argentinosaurus, possibly the largest land animal that ever lived, stands knee-deep in the slow-moving water. At over 100 feet long and weighing perhaps 100 tons, it's a creature of such immense proportions that your mind struggles to process its size. The giant's presence has turned the river into a temporary oasis for smaller creatures. Fish leap from the water in silver arcs, disturbed by the dinosaur's massive feet. Early birds with toothed beaks dive for fish in the shallows, while primitive mammals, small furry creatures about the size of modern shrews, scurry along the banks, feeding on insects and fallen fruit. You settle on a fallen log to watch this peaceful scene, marveling at the diversity of life that the Cretaceous world supports. This is no longer the experimental world of the Triassic or even the giant-dominated landscape of the Jurassic. This is an ecosystem of incredible sophistication where countless species have found their perfect niches in a world of abundant resources and stable climate. You watch as a herd of Edmontosaurus, large duck-billed dinosaurs, moves through the forest in a complex social formation, with adults positioned to protect the young from any potential threats. You see the elaborate courtship display of a male Carnotaurus, its horned head bobbing rhythmically as it tries to attract a mate with a series of colorful throat displays. As evening approaches, and the first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky, you're struck by a profound sense of melancholy. This beautiful, diverse world in this peak of dinosaurian evolution is living on borrowed time. Though the creatures around you don't know it, their dynasty is nearing its end. In just a few million years, a catastrophe will strike that will end the age of dinosaurs forever. But for now, in this moment, the Cretaceous world exists in all its magnificent complexity. The air fills with the evening songs of dinosaurs, the deep rumbles of the giants, the musical calls of the duckbills, and the chirping of the small feathered species in the trees. It's a symphony that has played for millions of years, and as you listen, you feel connected to something vast and ancient and wonderful. As you drift off to sleep beside the gentle river, lulled by the sounds of the Cretaceous night, you carry with you the knowledge that you have witnessed life at its most spectacular. These creatures, these magnificent dinosaurs, represent one of evolution's greatest experiments. And though their time will end, their legacy will live on in the birds that still sing in our modern world. In the soft light of Cretaceous dawn, you find yourself drawn to explore the quieter corners of this ancient world, away from the thunderous footsteps of giants and the dramatic confrontations between predator and prey. For in this age of magnificent monsters, there exists another story, one of small creatures living in the shadows, creatures whose survival strategies will ultimately prove more enduring than size or strength. You make your way through the undergrowth, pushing aside flowering ferns and stepping carefully around cycad roots. until you reach a fallen log that has become a miniature ecosystem in its own right. The rotting wood is soft and spongy with moisture, providing perfect habitat for creatures that prefer to stay hidden from the larger residents of the Cretaceous world. As you settle quietly beside the log, movement catches your eye. A small furry creature about the size of a modern mouse emerges cautiously from a crevice in the bark. This is Alphodon, one of the early marsupials that have begun to diversify during the Cretaceous period. Its large eyes and alert ears speak to a life lived in constant awareness of danger, where survival depends on quick reflexes and careful hiding. You watch, fascinated. As the little marsupial begins its morning routine, it moves with quick, darting motions, pausing frequently to sniff the air and listen for any signs of threat. Its diet is varied. You see it catch and devour a small beetle, then move on to nibble on some fallen seeds from an early flowering tree. This opportunistic feeding strategy is key to its survival in a world dominated by much larger creatures. Nearby, another small survivor goes about its daily business. A primitive bird, not much larger than a sparrow, flits from branch to branch in search of insects. This is Iberome sornis, one of the toothed birds that bridged the gap between dinosaurs and modern avians. Its teeth, so strange to modern eyes accustomed to beaked birds, are perfectly adapted for catching and holding slippery prey like insects and small fish. The bird's feathers are beautifully iridescent in the morning light, but you notice they're not quite like modern bird feathers. They're more primitive, less perfectly organized, representing an intermediate stage in the evolution of flight. Yet despite their differences from modern feathers, they serve their purpose well, providing both insulation and the aerodynamic properties needed for powered flight. As you continue your observation of this hidden world, you begin to understand the incredible importance of these small creatures. While the giant dinosaurs dominate the landscape and capture the imagination, it's these tiny survivors that are quietly revolutionizing life on Earth. The flowering plants around you exist because of the pollination services provided by early bees and other insects. The complex food webs that support the massive herbivores depend on these small decomposers and seed dispersers. A rustling in the leaf litter draws your attention to another remarkable survivor, a small lizard. Its scales shimmering with an almost metallic sheen emerges from beneath a pile of fallen leaves. This is one of the early members of the squamate reptiles, the group that includes modern snakes and lizards. Like the mammals and birds around it, this creature has found success not through size or strength, but through adaptability and efficiency. The lizard moves with quick, precise motions, its forked tongue flicking out frequently to taste the air for chemical clues about its environment. You watch as it spots a small arthropod and strikes with lightning speed, demonstrating the efficient predation strategies that have made squamates so successful throughout their evolutionary history. Above you in the canopy, the early morning is filled with a symphony of small sounds, the chittering of primitive primates, the buzz of insects, and the varied calls of early birds. This acoustic landscape is remarkably rich and complex, suggesting sophisticated communication systems and social behaviors among these small creatures. You notice a group of what appear to be tiny feathered dinosaurs moving through the branches overhead. These are likely dromaeosaurs, the famous raptors, but seeing them in their natural arboreal habitat reveals them to be far more bird-like than terrestrial predators. Their feathers are brilliantly colored, some sport iridescent blues and greens, others show striking patterns of black and white stripes. These small theropods use their famous sickle claws not primarily as weapons but as climbing aids, allowing them to navigate the three-dimensional world of the forest canopy with remarkable agility. Their feathers serve multiple purposes: insulation, display, and possibly even limited gliding ability as they leap from branch to branch. As the morning progresses and the heat begins to build, you observe the various strategies these small creatures use to cope with the warm Cretaceous climate. Some, like the early mammals, seek out cool, shady spots where they can reduce their exposure to the sun. Others, like the lizards, use behavioral thermoregulation, moving between sun and shade to maintain their optimal body temperature. The insects around you are particularly fascinating to observe. This is the age when many modern insect groups are first appearing and diversifying rapidly. You see early ants beginning to form the complex social colonies that will make them one of the most successful groups on Earth. Primitive bees and wasps are experimenting with different social structures and nesting behaviors. Beetles of incredible diversity crawl through the leaf litter, each species specialized for a particular ecological niche. Perhaps most remarkably, you witness the early stages of one of evolution's most important partnerships, a relationship between flowering plants and their pollinators. A primitive bee, its body covered in fuzzy hairs that collect pollen, moves methodically from flower to flower. The relationship is still relatively simple compared to the elaborate co-evolutionary partnerships that will develop later, but you can see the beginnings of the intricate dependencies that will shape both plant and animal evolution for millions of years to come. As you watch these small dramas unfold, you're struck by the realization that you're witnessing the future in embryo. While the giant dinosaurs around you represent the pinnacle of one evolutionary trajectory, these small creatures represent the roots of another, one that will ultimately prove more adaptable to changing conditions. The mammals scurrying through the undergrowth are the ancestors of every mammal that will ever live, including humans. The birds flitting through the canopy will survive the coming extinction and diversify into the incredible variety of avian life that graces our modern world. Even the insects and other arthropods around you are establishing the basic patterns of behavior and ecology that will persist for millions of years. As the heat of midday approaches, many of the small creatures retreat to cooler hiding places, but their presence continues to make itself known through subtle signs. You notice the tiny bite marks on leaves where insects have been feeding, the small holes in the soft wood where beetles have been burrowing, and the scattered seed husks where small mammals have been foraging. This hidden world of small survivors operates according to different rules than the spectacular world of the dinosaurian giants. Here, success is measured not in size or strength, but in efficiency, adaptability, and reproductive success. These creatures are masters of finding niches that larger animals cannot exploit, of surviving on minimal resources, and of reproducing quickly when conditions are favorable. As if drawn by an irresistible current, you find yourself leaving the flower-filled forests of the Cretaceous and walking toward the sound of distant waves. The landscape gradually changes around you as you approach the super. The inland flowering trees give way to primitive salt-tolerant plants, and the air becomes heavy with the scent of salt and seaweed. You emerge onto a beach unlike any in the modern world. The sand beneath your feet is warm and fine, but it's composed of different minerals than modern beaches, giving it an almost pearl-like quality in the afternoon sun. Strange shells and bones litter the strand, remnants of creatures both familiar and utterly alien. But it's the ocean itself that takes your breath away. Stretching out before you is a sea that teems with life on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. The water is crystal clear and warm, more like a tropical lagoon than an open ocean, and through its transparent depths you can see creatures that dwarf even the largest land animals you've encountered. A shadow passes overhead, and you look up to see one of the most magnificent sights in all of natural history. A pteranodon, with a wingspan of over 20 feet, soars effortlessly above the waves. Its massive wings catch the sunlight, revealing the complex structure of the flight membranes that allow it to stay aloft for hours without flapping. Its long, toothless beak is perfectly adapted for snatching fish from the surface of the sea, and as you watch, it performs this feat with graceful precision, barely disturbing the water as it captures its prey. But the real giants of this ancient ocean live beneath the waves. As you wade into the warm, shallow water, you spot movement in the deeper channels just offshore. At first it's just a dark shape gliding through the blue depths, but as it approaches the surface you realize you're looking at one of the most formidable predators ever to live in Earth's oceans. This is Mosasaurus, a marine reptile that grew to lengths of over 50 feet and ruled the Cretaceous seas with undisputed authority. Its massive head, nearly 10 feet long, is armed with rows of sharp teeth designed for grasping and crushing large prey. Its powerful flippers propel it through the water with surprising speed and agility, while its long muscular tail serves as both rudder and additional propulsion. The Mosasaurus breaks the surface not far from where you stand, its massive head emerging from the water with a sound like a small geyser. For a moment you find yourself looking directly into the eye of this ancient leviathan, eye as large as a dinner plate, with an intelligence that seems to peer directly into your soul. Then with a powerful thrust of its tail the creature disappears beneath the waves, leaving only ripples to mark its passage. As you stand waist deep in the warm Cretaceous Sea, other marine reptiles begin to make their presence known. A group of plesiosaurs surfaces nearby me. These are the famous sea serpents of the Cretaceous, though they're actually more closely related to land reptiles than to snakes. As you stand waist deep in the warm Cretaceous Sea, other marine reptiles than to snakes. Their incredibly long necks, some comprising more than 70 vertebrae, allow them to strike at fish with lightning speed while keeping their large bodies motionless in the water. You watch, mesmerized, as these creatures demonstrate their hunting technique. Their necks weave through the water like living ropes, moving independently of their bodies as they search for schools of fish. When prey is spotted, the neck snaps forward with incredible speed, or the small head at its tip, equipped with long sharp teeth perfect for grasping slippery fish. The diversity of marine life in the Cretaceous seas is staggering. Ammonites, relatives of modern nautiluses but with shells that spiral in complex mathematical patterns, jet through the water using a form of natural rocket propulsion. Some of these ancient cephalopods grow to enormous sizes. You see shells over 6 feet in diameter, belonging to creatures that would dwarf any squid in the modern ocean, and in the deepest belemnites, relatives of modern squid, dart through the water in schools of hundreds, their torpedo-shaped bodies perfectly designed for speed. When threatened by larger predators, they release clouds of ink that turn sections of the sea dark, providing cover for their escape. Their fossilized guards, the hard internal shells that supported their bodies, will one day be found by curious humans, but for now they serve as the backbone of these graceful swimmers. Beneath your feet, the sandy bottom of the shallow sea is carpeted with life. Rudists, massive bivalve mollusks that look more like corals than clams, have built extensive reef systems that provide shelter for countless smaller creatures. These strange shells, some shaped like ice cream cones and others like elaborate trumpets, filter vast quantities of seawater, extracting nutrients and helping to keep the ancient oceans clean and clear. Swimming among the rudest reefs are fish unlike any in the modern world. Early sharks glide through the water with the same effortless grace as their modern descendants, but many sport unusual features. Some have elaborate spines projecting from their dorsal fins, others have teeth arranged in bizarre spiral patterns within their jaws. Bony fish too show experimental forms that evolution will eventually abandon. Some have armor-like scales that make them look more like swimming tanks than fish. As you float in the warm water, letting the gentle current carry you along the reef, you notice that the boundary between sea and sky is often blurred in this ancient world. Pterosaurs of various sizes wheel overhead, some diving for fish while others soar on thermal currents rising from the sun-warmed water. The largest of these, Quetzalcoatlus, doesn't hunt fish at all, but instead feeds on the carcasses of marine reptiles that wash ashore, using its massive size and impressive wingspan to dominate the beaches. The sounds of the Cretaceous ocean are as alien as its inhabitants. The calls of marine reptiles echo through the water, deep, whale-like songs from the largest plesiosaurs, higher-pitched clicks and whistles from the smaller species, and the occasional explosive exhalation as a mosasaurus surfaces to breathe. These sounds create an acoustic landscape that speaks of intelligence and complex social behaviors among creatures that have often been portrayed as simple, primitive beasts. As the afternoon progresses, you witness one of the most spectacular feeding events in natural history. A school of primitive fish, their silver scales flashing in the sunlight, moves close to the surface in a coordinated formation. Their presence attracts attention from both above and below. Pteranodon dive from the sky while plesiosaurs rise from the depths, creating a feeding frenzy that turns the water into a cauldron of activity. The coordination between the different predators is remarkable to observe. The pteranodon, with their aerial perspective, can spot the fish schools from great distances, and their diving attacks often drive the fish deeper, right into the waiting jaws of the marine reptiles below. It's a complex ecosystem where every creature has found its niche and where the abundance of life supports predators of enormous size and sophistication. As evening approaches and the light begins to fade, the character of the ancient sea changes once again. Bioluminescent organisms, the ancestors of modern dinoflagellates and other light-producing plankton, begin to glow in the water, creating trails of blue-green light wherever movement disturbs the surface. This natural light show is breathtaking in its beauty, turning every wave and ripple into a display of living starlight. Many species that have been active during the day begin to settle into nighttime behaviors. Some seek out sheltered areas among the reefs to rest, while others, adapted for nocturnal hunting, become more active as darkness falls. You make your way back to the beach as the first stars appear in the darkening sky. But the sounds of the ocean continue to reach you. The gentle lap of waves against the shore, the distant calls of night-active pterosaurs, and the occasional splash as some large marine creature surfaces in the darkness. This ancient sea represents one of the greatest achievements of evolution, a fully three-dimensional ecosystem where life has colonized every available niche from the surface to the deepest trenches. As darkness settles over the Cretaceous world, you discover that the ancient night brings its own cast of fascinating characters. The diurnal giants may rest, but the darkness belongs to creatures perfectly adapted for life in a world without artificial light. You find yourself drawn deeper into the nighttime forest, where the sounds and scents of nocturnal life create an atmosphere of mystery and wonder. The forest at night is alive with movement, though much of it remains hidden from view. Your eyes gradually adjust to the darkness, helped by starlight that shines with unusual clarity through the unpolluted Cretaceous atmosphere. The familiar sounds of the day, the calls of the great herbivores and the distant rumbles of sauropods, have given way to a subtler but no less complex symphony of night sounds. From somewhere high in the canopy comes a series of soft chirps and whistles, the calls of small feathered dinosaurs that have made the treetops their domain. These sounds are remarkably bird-like, and indeed the boundary between bird and dinosaur becomes increasingly blurred as you observe these nocturnal creatures. Some of the calls are clearly territorial markers. Others seem to be contact calls between mates or family groups. Moving carefully through the undergrowth, guided by the soft glow of bioluminescent fungi that dot the forest floor, you catch glimpses of the night shift taking over. A small mammal about the size of a modern opossum emerges from a hollow log and begins its nightly foraging routine. This is Didelphodon, one of the larger mammals of the Cretaceous, and its behavior reveals the sophisticated survival strategies that early mammals developed to coexist with dinosaurs. The creature moves with careful deliberation, pausing frequently to sniff the air and listen for any signs of danger. Its large eyes reflect the starlight, indicating adaptations for night vision that allow it to navigate in near-complete darkness. You watch as it investigates a fallen tree, using its sensitive nose to locate insect larvae hidden beneath the bark. But Didelphodon is not just an insectivore. It's an opportunistic omnivore with a surprisingly varied diet. You observe it cracking open small mollusks with its powerful jaws, and later see it carefully raiding the nest of a small dinosaur, making off with an egg that it will consume in the safety of its burrow. This behavioral flexibility is key to mammalian survival in the age of dinosaurs. A rustling in the ferns nearby draws your attention to another nocturnal hunter. A small theropod dinosaur, no larger than a chicken, emerges into a patch of moonlight. This is Microraptor, one of the four-winged dinosaurs that represent an early experiment in powered flight. Its black feathers shimmer with an iridescent sheen that would make any modern crow jealous. Despite its small size, Microraptor is a sophisticated predator, perfectly adapted for hunting in the forest canopy. You watch as it demonstrates its remarkable climbing abilities, using the claws on both its hands and feet to navigate the complex three-dimensional world of the trees. Its four wings, while not capable of sustained flight like those of modern birds, allow it to glide efficiently from tree to tree as it hunts for roosting prey. The hunting technique of Microraptor is fascinating to observe. It moves with infinite patience, using its excellent night vision to spot sleeping birds and small mammals in the branches. When prey is located, it approaches with extraordinary stealth, its feathered body allowing it to move almost silently through the foliage. The attack, when it comes, is swift and deadly, lightning-fast strike with its sickle-shaped claws. As you continue your nocturnal exploration, you encounter evidence of larger night hunters as well. Fresh tracks in the soft earth beside a stream tell the story of a troodon that passed this way recently. These dinosaurs, with their large eyes and relatively large brains, were among the most intelligent non-avian dinosaurs, and they were particularly well adapted for nocturnal hunting. Troodon possessed night vision capabilities that rivaled those of modern owls, along with acute hearing and a keen sense of smell. Their hunting strategy involved patience and intelligence rather than brute force. They were stalkers and ambush predators that used their mental abilities to outthink their prey rather than simply overpowering it. The evidence of Troodon's presence adds an element of tension to your nighttime walk. These creatures were opportunistic feeders that wouldn't hesitate to investigate any unusual disturbance in their territory. Their intelligence made them unpredictable, and their pack-hunting behavior meant that where there was one, there were likely others nearby. Moving to higher ground where you can observe the forest from a safer vantage point, you settle beneath a large conifer to watch the nocturnal world go about its business. The view from your elevated position reveals the true extent of nighttime activity in the Cretaceous ecosystem. Pinpoints of light mark the locations of bioluminescent organisms, creating a constellation of biological stars at ground level. In a clearing below, you witness an extraordinary sight. A group of small dinosaurs engaged in what appears to be a courtship ritual. Their feathers flash with colors that are visible even in the dim starlight, and their movements are choreographed with a precision that speaks of complex social behaviors and communication systems. The sounds of the night continue to evolve as the hours pass. New calls emerge from different parts of the forest, in some high and musical, others deep and resonant. These acoustic signals create an invisible network of communication that spans the entire ecosystem, allowing creatures to coordinate their activities, warn of dangers, and maintain contact with family groups across vast distances. You notice that many of the night sounds have a rhythmic quality, almost like a natural percussion ensemble. The chirping of insects provides a constant background beat, while the calls of various dinosaurs and early mammals add melodic lines that weave in and out of the composition. It's a symphony that has been playing for millions of years, each generation of performers adding their own variations to ancient themes. As the night deepens and the temperature drops slightly, you observe the behavioral adaptations that allow these creatures to remain active in cooler conditions. The small mammals fluff their fur to create insulating air pockets, while the feathered dinosaurs adjust their plumage in similar ways. Some species huddle together for warmth, creating social groups that serve both thermoregulatory and protective functions. The nocturnal world also reveals different feeding strategies than those employed during the day. Many night hunters are specialists that have evolved to exploit food sources that are less available during daylight hours. You observe nocturnal pollinators visiting flowers that open only at night, their long tongues perfectly adapted for reaching nectar in deep tubular blossoms. Other night hunters focus on prey that becomes vulnerable in darkness. Small dinosaurs hunt roosting pterosaurs using stealth and surprise to overcome creatures that are nearly invulnerable during their active daytime hours. Mammalian predators raid the nests of ground-dwelling dinosaurs, timing their activities to coincide with periods when the parent animals are least vigilant. As dawn breaks over the Cretaceous world, you find yourself drawn toward a distant glow on the horizon of the red-orange light of volcanic activity that reminds you that this ancient Earth is a much more geologically active place than the modern world. The landscape ahead shows the dramatic effects of this activity, with layers of volcanic ash and hardened lava flows creating a terrain that is both beautiful and forbidding. The journey toward the volcanic region takes you through landscapes that showcase the incredible diversity of Cretaceous environments. You pass through stands of early flowering trees that have colonized the nutrient-rich volcanic soils, their roots delving deep into the mineral-laden earth. These plants have grown to enormous sizes, fed by the abundant nutrients released by volcanic activity. The animal life in this volcanic region has adapted in remarkable ways to the challenging conditions. You encounter dinosaurs with unusually robust builds and thick protective skin that helps them cope with the higher levels of ambient radiation and occasional ash falls. Their behavior too shows adaptations to the unstable environment. They move in larger herds for protection and have developed sophisticated migration patterns that allow them to avoid the most dangerous periods of volcanic activity. As you climb higher into the volcanic landscape, the vegetation changes dramatically. The lush forests give way to more sparse, specialized plant communities dominated by ferns and early conifers that can tolerate the acidic soils and occasional ash falls. These plants serve as pioneers, colonizing new ground created by volcanic activity and beginning the long process of ecological succession. The sounds in this region are different too. The normal forest sounds are punctuated by the distant rumble of volcanic activity, the hiss of steam vents and the crack of cooling lava. These geological sounds create an underlying bass note that vibrates through the ground and can be felt as much as heard. From a ridge overlooking an active volcanic field, you witness one of the most spectacular sights in natural history. A massive volcanic eruption is taking place in the distance, sending columns of ash and gas high into the atmosphere. The eruption creates its own weather system, with lightning flickering through the ash clouds and creating an otherworldly display of natural power. But what makes this sight truly remarkable is the response of the local wildlife. Rather than fleeing in panic, many species have clearly learned to read the signs of volcanic activity and respond appropriately. Large herds of herbivorous dinosaurs move calmly but purposefully away from the eruption site, following well-established migration routes that have been used for countless generations. Pterosaurs take advantage of the thermal updrafts created by the volcanic activity, soaring to incredible heights on wings spread wide to catch the rising columns of heated air. Some species seem to have specialized in exploiting these volcanic thermals, using them to travel vast distances with minimal energy expenditure. The volcanic landscape also provides unique feeding opportunities for some species. You observe large theropods scavenging around recent lava flows, feeding on animals that were killed by the volcanic activity. The heat from the cooling lava creates localized ecosystems where thermophilic bacteria thrive, supporting food webs that exist nowhere else. In the thermal pools and hot springs created by volcanic activity, you discover communities of organisms that seem almost alien. Primitive bacteria form colorful mats in the hot water, creating rainbow patterns of red, orange, yellow, and green. These bacterial communities represent some of the most ancient forms of life on Earth, and their presence in the Cretaceous volcanic landscape provides a direct link to the earliest chapters of life's history. The mineral-rich waters of these thermal features support unique plant communities as well. Early flowering plants with unusual adaptations to high-temperature conditions grow around the edges of hot springs, their roots extending into water that would be lethal to most organisms. These specialized ecosystems serve as natural laboratories for evolution, pushing life to adapt to extreme conditions. As you explore deeper into the volcanic landscape, you encounter evidence of the long-term effects of volcanic activity on the evolution of life. Layers of volcanic ash in the rock record tell stories of past eruptions and their impacts on local ecosystems. Some layers contain abundant fossils of organisms that were killed by ash falls, while others show evidence of rapid evolutionary changes in response to environmental pressures. The volcanic activity of the Cretaceous period is not just a local phenomenon, it's part of a global pattern of increased geological activity that will ultimately play a role in the extinction event that ends the age of dinosaurs. But for now, life continues to adapt and thrive in this dynamic environment, demonstrating the incredible resilience and flexibility that has allowed life to persist through countless geological changes. Leaving the dramatic volcanic landscape behind, you find yourself descending toward a vast inland lake that stretches to the horizon like an ancient sea. This body of water represents one of the most complete ecosystems of the Cretaceous world, a place where terrestrial and aquatic environments meet and merge in countless fascinating ways. The lake shores are lined with vegetation that shows the continuing revolution of flowering plants. Early water lilies float on the surface, their primitive blooms attracting an incredible diversity of insects. Cattail-like plants grow in the shallows, while the deeper waters are dominated by floating mats of algae and primitive aquatic flowering plants. As you wade into the warm, clear water, you're immediately struck by the incredible diversity of life that calls this lake home. Schools of early bony fish, their scales glinting silver in the sunlight, move through the water in coordinated formations. Some of these fish show experimental body plans that evolution will eventually abandon. Some have armor-like scales. Others sport unusual fin configurations that seem almost whimsical to modern eyes. The lake supports a complex food web that extends from microscopic plankton to massive predators. In the shallows, you observe early amphibians that represent a throwback to more ancient times. These are not the ancestors of modern frogs and salamanders, but rather the last representatives of groups that flourished earlier in Earth's history. Their presence in the Cretaceous lake ecosystem provides a living connection to the distant past. Crocodilians of various sizes patrol the waters, ranging from small, agile species that specialize in catching fish to massive forms that rival any predator in the lake. These ancient archosaurs have found their perfect niche in aquatic environments, and their basic body plan has remained largely unchanged for over 200 million years. A testament to its effectiveness. But perhaps the most spectacular residents of the lake are the dinosaurs that have adapted to aquatic life. A group of Spinosaurus, massive theropods with distinctive sail-like structures on their backs, wade through the deeper water with remarkable grace. Recent evidence suggests that these giants were semi-aquatic, spending much of their time in water hunting for fish and other aquatic prey. Watching a Spinosaurus hunt is like observing a living submarine. The massive predator submerges almost completely, with only its eyes and nostrils visible above the surface, then propels itself through the water using its powerful tail and paddle-like feet. When prey is spotted, the attack is explosive. The massive head lunges forward with incredible speed, the long crocodile-like jaws snapping shut on fish that can weigh hundreds of pounds. The lake shores provide nesting sites for numerous dinosaur species, and you have the privilege of observing some of the most intimate moments in dinosaur family life. A group of duck-billed dinosaurs has established a nesting colony on a sandy beach, and you watch as the adults carefully tend their eggs, rotating them regularly and maintaining the proper temperature through their body heat. The nesting behavior of these dinosaurs is remarkably sophisticated. The adults take turns standing guard while others forage for food, and they communicate constantly through a complex system of calls and visual displays. When danger threatens, the entire colony responds as one, with adults forming protective circles around the nests and young animals. In the shallows near the nesting colony, you observe the elaborate courtship displays of various dinosaur species. Male Parasaurolophus produce haunting musical calls through their hollow crests, each individual's call unique like a musical signature. The complexity and beauty of these calls suggest that dinosaur communication was far more sophisticated than previously imagined. The lake ecosystem also supports an incredible diversity of pterosaurs, many of which have specialized for life around water. Some species have developed fishing techniques that rival those of modern seabirds. They dive from great heights to catch fish, while others skim the surface with their lower jaws cutting through the water like living fishing lines. As you float on your back in the warm water, looking up at the pterosaurs wheeling overhead, you're struck by the realization that you're witnessing one of evolution's greatest experiments in powered flight. These creatures have independently evolved the ability to fly, developing solutions to the challenges of aerial locomotion that are completely different from those used by birds or bats. Lake's ecosystem extends far beyond its visible shores. Underground springs feed the lake with mineral-rich water that supports unique communities of organisms. Hot springs around the lake's margin create localized ecosystems where thermophilic bacteria and specialized plants thrive in conditions that would be lethal to most life forms. As evening approaches and the light begins to fade, the lake ecosystem undergoes its daily transformation. Many of the daytime predators seek shelter, while nocturnal species become active. The surface of the lake becomes dotted with the ripples of feeding fish, and the air fills with the sounds of night-active pterosaurs and the calls of various dinosaur species settling in for the night. Deep in the heart of the Cretaceous continent, far from the volcanic activity and the Great Lakes, lies a forest of such immense proportions that it seems to stretch beyond the edges of the world itself. This is the domain of the true giants of the dinosaur age, where creatures of almost impossible size live out their lives among trees that tower hundreds of feet into the sky. You enter this cathedral of wood and stone through a natural archway formed by the massive buttress roots of an ancient conifer. The scale of everything around you is overwhelming. Its individual tree trunks are so large that it would take dozens of people holding hands to encircle them, and the canopy above disappears into a green gloom that filters the sunlight into shifting patterns of gold and emerald. The air in this primeval forest is thick and humid, heavy with the scent of growing things and the rich earthiness of decomposing vegetation. Every surface is covered with life. Moss and ferns carpet the forest floor, while epiphytic plants festoon the tree trunks and branches. The constant drip of moisture from the canopy creates a gentle percussion that provides the background rhythm for all other forest sounds. As you make your way deeper into this green world, the ground begins to tremble with a rhythm that speaks of massive creatures moving through the forest. The sound grows stronger as you approach, until finally you emerge into a clearing where one of the most magnificent sights in natural history unfolds before your eyes. A herd of Argentinosaurus, possibly the largest land animals that ever lived, moves slowly through the forest like living mountains. Each individual is over 100 feet long and weighs perhaps 100 tons, making them larger than the largest blue whales. Yet, despite their enormous size, they move with a surprising grace, their long necks swaying gently as they select the choicest vegetation from the forest canopy. The sounds these giants make are unlike anything in the modern world, deep, resonant calls that seem to emerge from the very earth itself. These vocalizations can travel for miles through the forest, allowing the animals to maintain contact with other herds across vast distances. The complexity of their calls suggests sophisticated communication systems and social behaviors that we are only beginning to understand. Watching the Argentinosaurus feed is like observing living landscapes in motion. Their long necks allow them to browse on vegetation 60 feet or more above the ground, reaching branches that no other herbivore can access. They strip leaves and small branches from the trees with movements that seem almost delicate despite the enormous forces involved. The ecological impact of these giants is profound and far-reaching. Each step creates small earthquakes that can be felt hundreds of yards away, and their feeding activities reshape the forest canopy, creating openings that allow light to reach the forest floor and promote new growth. They are ecosystem engineers on a scale that the modern world has never seen, moving through the trees with surprising stealth for a creature of its size is Giganotosaurus, one of the largest predators ever to walk the earth. At over 40 feet long and weighing perhaps 8 tons, it represents the ultimate expression of theropod evolution, a perfectly designed killing machine scaled up to hunt the largest prey animals in Earth's history. The hunting strategy of Giganotosaurus is a marvel of evolutionary engineering. Its massive skull, nearly 6 feet long, is equipped with teeth designed not just for slicing flesh, but for inflicting massive blood loss on enormous prey. Its powerful legs can propel its massive body at speeds approaching 25 miles per hour, fast enough to run down even the swiftest sauropods. Yet what's most impressive about Giganotosaurus is not its size or speed, but its intelligence. This is a creature capable of complex problem solving and strategic thinking. You observe one individual studying a herd of sauropods, clearly evaluating the best approach for an attack. Its eyes track the movements of potential prey with the calculating gaze of a master predator. The social behavior of these giant predators is still debated among scientists, but the evidence suggests that at least some species hunted in coordinated groups. The sight of multiple Giganotosaurus working together to bring down a massive sauropod would have been one of the most spectacular events in natural history, a clash of titans that could shake the earth and be heard for miles. The forest giants exist in a delicate balance with their environment. The massive sauropods require enormous amounts of vegetation to sustain their bulk, and they must constantly migrate in search of fresh feeding grounds. Their movements follow ancient pathways through the forest, routes that have been used for millions of years and have become embedded in the landscape itself. These migration routes support their own unique ecosystems. The regular passage of giant herbivores creates natural highways through the forest, clearings that are colonized by plants and animals that specialize in disturbed habitats. Scavengers follow the herds, feeding on the occasional carcass and on the parasites and other organisms that the giants inadvertently carry from place to place. As you settle in for the night in this forest of giants, lulled by the distant calls of sauropods and the gentle rustle of enormous creatures moving through the darkness, you reflect on the sheer improbability of what you're witnessing. These are animals so large that they challenge our understanding of what's possible in terrestrial ecosystems, yet they lived and thrived for millions of years in numbers that suggest their lifestyle was not just viable but highly successful. Time flows around you like a gentle river, and you find yourself experiencing the passage of seasons in this ancient world. The Cretaceous climate is generally warm and humid, but even in this greenhouse world there are subtle changes that mark the turning of the year and influence the behavior of all living things. You begin to notice these changes first in the behavior of the flowering plants around you. Certain species that bloomed continuously during the warmest months now show distinct flowering cycles, their reproductive strategies timed to coincide with optimal conditions for pollination and seed development. The relationships between plants and their pollinators become more complex and synchronized as both groups evolve together. The dinosaurs too respond to these seasonal cues in fascinating ways. You observe that many species have distinct breeding seasons, with elaborate courtship displays and territorial behaviors becoming more pronounced during certain times of the year. The famous crests and frills of many dinosaur species take on new meaning as you watch them being used in complex social interactions that determine mating success and social status. During what might be called the Cretaceous equivalent of spring, the forest erupts with new growth and activity. Young dinosaurs emerge from their nests in synchronized groups, their timing carefully coordinated to take advantage of abundant food resources and favorable weather conditions. The sight of baby hadrosaurs taking their first uncertain steps, still bearing the distinctive juvenile features that will change dramatically as they mature, provides a touching glimpse into the family life of these ancient giants. The migration patterns of various species become more apparent as you observe them over longer periods. Massive herds of herbivorous dinosaurs follow ancient routes that take them thousands of miles across the continent, following the availability of food and water resources that change with the seasons. These migrations rival anything seen in the modern world for their scale and complexity. Watching a migration is like witnessing a living river flowing across the landscape, thousands of animals moving in loose coordination, their collective footsteps creating a sound like distant thunder. The diversity within these migrating herds is remarkable. Different species travel together for mutual protection, each contributing its own specialized abilities to the group's survival. The predators too follow seasonal patterns in their behavior. You notice that pack-hunting species become more coordinated during certain times of year, possibly corresponding to periods when prey animals are most vulnerable. The sounds of the forest change as well. Territorial calls become more frequent and aggressive during breeding seasons, while migration periods are marked by the constant contact calls of animals trying to maintain group cohesion. As the seasons progress, you begin to understand that the Cretaceous world operates according to cycles that are both similar to and different from those in the modern world. The absence of deciduous trees means that seasonal changes are more subtle, marked more by changes in flowering and fruiting patterns than by dramatic color changes in the foliage. The rains, when they come, transform the landscape in dramatic ways. The warm Cretaceous climate means that precipitation often arrives in intense storms that can drop enormous amounts of water in short periods. You witness the effects of these deluges as they trigger explosive growth in plant communities and create temporary wetlands that support their own unique assemblages of organisms. During the drier periods, competition for water sources intensifies, and you observe some of the most complex social behaviors in the dinosaur world. Watering holes become neutral territories where natural enemies may drink side by side, their thirst temporarily overriding their predatory instincts. The social hierarchies that develop around these precious resources provide insights into the intelligence and behavioral complexity of these ancient animals. The seasonal changes also affect the smaller creatures of the Cretaceous world in profound ways. Early mammals show distinct seasonal behaviors, with some species entering periods of reduced activity during the warmest months, while others time their reproductive cycles to coincide with periods of maximum food availability. Insects too respond to seasonal cues, with some species showing complex life cycles that are precisely timed to take advantage of specific environmental conditions. The emergence of certain insects triggers feeding frenzies among insectivorous dinosaurs and early birds, creating temporary abundance that ripples through the entire ecosystem. Beneath the spectacular surface world of the Cretaceous period lies another realm, equally fascinating and far more hidden from view. You find yourself drawn to explore the underground world of this ancient time, discovering that life in the Mesozoic era extended far below the surface in ways that are often overlooked in reconstructions of dinosaur ecosystems. And you find yourself drawn to explore the underground world of this ancient time, discovering that life in the Mesozoic era into. Your exploration begins at the entrance to a cave system carved into limestone deposits laid down by ancient seas. The entrance is partially concealed by curtains of primitive flowering vines and ferns, but the cool air flowing from within beckons you to explore further. As you make your way into the underground passages, your eyes gradually adjust to the dim light that filters in from the surface. The cave walls are alive with a diversity of organisms that have adapted to this twilight world. Primitive bacteria form colorful biofilms on the rock surfaces, their metabolic processes slowly dissolving the limestone and creating the intricate formations that decorate the cave interior. These bacterial communities represent some of the most ancient forms of life on Earth, and their presence provides a direct link to the earliest chapters of evolutionary history. Moving deeper into the cave system, you encounter evidence of the vertebrate life that has colonized these underground spaces. Small mammal bones scattered on the cave floor tell stories of creatures that used these caverns for shelter and protection from the giants that dominated the surface world. Some of these bones show evidence of gnawing, suggesting that the cave supported complex food webs based on scavenging and predation. In the deepest parts of the cave, where no sunlight has ever penetrated, you discover organisms that have evolved unique adaptations to life in perpetual darkness. Primitive arthropods, blind and pale, navigate the cave passages using chemical and tactile senses. These creatures represent evolutionary experiments in sensory adaptation that parallel similar developments in modern cave fauna. The underground world also serves as a refuge during times of environmental stress on the surface. Evidence suggests that during periods of volcanic activity or extreme weather, many surface-dwelling species took shelter in cave systems, creating temporary underground communities that mix species that would never normally interact. Emerging from the caves, you discover another aspect of the underground world, the extensive burrow systems created by dinosaurs themselves. Many species, particularly smaller ornithopods and some theropods, were accomplished diggers that created complex underground networks for protection and climate control. One of the most impressive examples is a Oryctodromeus burrow, an underground tunnel system that extends for dozens of feet through the soil. The engineering of these burrows is remarkable, with carefully constructed ventilation systems and multiple entrances that provide escape routes in case of danger. The burrows maintain a constant temperature that protects their inhabitants from the extremes of surface weather. The social implications of these burrow systems are fascinating to contemplate. Evidence suggests that some species lived in communal burrows, sharing the costs and benefits of excavation and maintenance. These underground communities may have been among the most complex social systems in the dinosaur world, requiring cooperation and coordination that rivals anything seen in modern burrowing mammals. The burrow systems also create unique microenvironments that support specialized plant and animal communities. The disturbed soil around burrow entrances provides ideal growing conditions for certain plants, while the burrows themselves become homes for smaller vertebrates and invertebrates that benefit from the protection and climate control they provide. As you explore more burrow systems, you begin to understand that the underground world of the Cretaceous was far more complex and important than previously realized. These subterranean habitats served as nurseries for young animals, refuges during extreme weather, and even hunting grounds for specialized predators that had evolved to exploit the unique opportunities provided by underground ecosystems. The interaction between surface and underground worlds creates a three-dimensional ecosystem of incredible complexity. Nutrients and energy flow between the two realms through a variety of pathways. Animals that feed underground bring energy to the surface through their waste products, while surface vegetation sends roots deep into the soil, creating connections that span multiple levels of the ecosystem. Some of the most fascinating discoveries in the underground world involve evidence of preservation that provides unique insights into Cretaceous life. In certain cave systems, the constant temperature and humidity have preserved organic materials that would have long since decomposed on the surface. These natural archives contain information about ancient diets, diseases, and behaviors that would otherwise be lost to time. Above the surface of the Cretaceous world stretches an aerial realm that is as complex and dynamic as any terrestrial ecosystem. The skies of this ancient world are filled with flying reptiles of incredible diversity, from tiny insectivores no larger than sparrows to giants with wingspans that exceed those of small aircraft. You find yourself gazing upward in wonder at this three-dimensional ecosystem that operates according to its own unique rules and rhythms. Pteranodon, the iconic giants of the Cretaceous skies, emerge from their roosting sites on cliff faces and begin their daily hunt for fish in the inland seas and lakes. Their enormous wings, spanning over 20 feet, are perfectly adapted for effortless soaring, allowing them to cover vast distances with minimal energy expenditure. But the pterosaurs are far from the only inhabitants of the Cretaceous skies. Early birds, still bearing many primitive features like teeth and long bony tails, share the aerial space with their reptilian cousins. You observe the subtle differences in their flight techniques. The birds rely more on powered flight with rapid wing beats, while the pterosaurs are masters of soaring and gliding. The diversity of pterosaur species is staggering, with each group specialized for different ecological niches. Small, agile forms like Pterodactylus dart through the forest canopy in pursuit of insects, their flight patterns reminding you of modern bats. Larger species like Pteranodon specialize in fishing, using their keen eyesight to spot schools of fish from great heights before diving with remarkable precision. But perhaps the most impressive of all the aerial giants is Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur, so large that it challenges our understanding of the physical limits of powered flight. With a wingspan approaching 35 feet and standing as tall as a giraffe when on the ground, this creature represents the ultimate expression of pterosaur evolution. Watching one of these giants take flight is like witnessing a small aircraft come to life, the massive wings beating with slow, powerful strokes that generate enough lift to carry its enormous body into the sky. The flight behavior of Quetzalcoatlus is fundamentally different from that of smaller pterosaurs. These giants are primarily terrestrial hunters that use flight for transportation between feeding areas rather than for hunting itself. You observe one landing on the shores of a lake where a large marine reptile has washed ashore, and witness the impressive sight of this aerial giant feeding on carrion with its massive toothless beak. The social behavior of pterosaurs adds another layer of complexity to the aerial ecosystem. Many species gather in large flocks during migration periods, creating spectacular displays as hundreds of flying reptiles move across the sky in coordinated formations. These migrations follow ancient routes that connect breeding areas with feeding grounds, and the timing is precisely coordinated with seasonal changes in food availability. The nesting behavior of pterosaurs provides insights into their sophisticated social structures. Many species nest in colonies on cliff tops and islands, locations that provide protection from ground-based predators while offering easy access to the air. The nesting sites become centers of intense social activity, with complex hierarchies determining access to the best nest locations. You observe the remarkable parental care behaviors of these flying reptiles as adults carefully tend their young, which are born surprisingly well developed and capable of flight within days of hatching. The early birds, by contrast, produce helpless young that require extensive parental care, a difference that reflects the distinct evolutionary strategies of these two groups of flying vertebrates. The aerial ecosystem is not just about the large, obvious flyers. The skies are also filled with insects of incredible diversity, many of them giants compared to their modern counterparts. Dragonflies with wingspans of over 2 feet patrol the airways like living fighter jets, while primitive bees and butterflies create clouds of color as they move between the abundant flowering plants. The interaction between aerial and terrestrial ecosystems is constant and complex. Pterosaurs and early birds serve as important seed dispersers, carrying plant reproductive material across vast distances and helping to establish plant communities in new areas. Their droppings also serve as fertilizer, concentrating nutrients from marine ecosystems and depositing them on land. The aerial highway also serves as an information network for the Cretaceous world. Flying animals can observe conditions across vast areas and respond quickly to changes in weather, food availability, or the presence of predators. This aerial perspective gives flying species advantages that purely terrestrial animals cannot match. Many daytime flyers seek out roosting sites, while nocturnal species begin to emerge. The transition period creates complex interactions as diurnal and nocturnal species briefly share the airspace. Night-flying pterosaurs adapted with enhanced sensory capabilities for navigation in darkness take over the aerial realm. Their calls echo through the night air, some high-pitched and bat-like, others deep and resonant. These acoustic signals serve not only for navigation but also for social communication, allowing flying animals to coordinate their activities across the vast three-dimensional space of the atmosphere. Your journey through time and space carries you far from the warm, humid landscapes that characterize much of the Cretaceous world to the polar regions where a very different chapter of ancient life unfolds. Contrary to popular belief, the Cretaceous poles are not frozen wastelands but rather temperate forests that experience months of continuous daylight followed by months of darkness, a challenging environment that has given rise to unique adaptations among the dinosaurs and other creatures that call these regions home. As you arrive in what would someday become Alaska, you find yourself in a landscape that seems almost familiar yet distinctly alien. Coniferous forests stretch as far as the eye can see, dominated by early forms of redwoods, pines, and firs that have adapted to the extreme photoperiods of polar life. The trees grow in strange, twisted shapes, their growth patterns reflecting the unique challenges of surviving in a world where the sun either never sets or never rises for months at a time. The dinosaur life of the polar regions shows remarkable adaptations to these challenging conditions. You encounter herds of Edmontosaurus, large duck-billed dinosaurs that have developed thick, insulating integument to help them cope with the cooler temperatures. Their behavior too shows adaptations to polar life. They feed frantically during the long summer days, building up fat reserves that will sustain them through the dark winter months. Perhaps most remarkably, evidence suggests that some polar dinosaurs may have been capable of hibernation, or at least extended periods of reduced activity during the darkest months. Bone histology studies of polar dinosaur remains show growth patterns that suggest seasonal changes in metabolic activity, similar to those seen in modern hibernating mammals. The predators of the polar regions face unique challenges in hunting prey that may be dormant for months at a time. Troodon, the large-brained theropod known for its intelligence, appears to have been particularly successful in polar environments. Their enhanced cognitive abilities may have been crucial for surviving the complex challenges of polar life, from navigating in perpetual darkness to finding food during the lean months. The plant life of polar regions shows its own fascinating adaptations. During the brief but intense growing season, plants must complete their entire reproductive cycle in just a few months. This has led to the evolution of plants with rapid growth rates and compressed flowering schedules. Some species produce massive blooms that attract pollinators from hundreds of miles away, creating temporary oases of color and activity in the polar landscape. The insect life of polar regions is particularly fascinating, with many species showing adaptations similar to those found in modern Arctic insects. Some produce antifreeze compounds that allow them to survive sub-zero temperatures, while others enter extended diapause during the dark months. The emergence of these insects during the brief polar summer creates feeding bonanzas for insectivorous dinosaurs and early birds. The seasonal migrations between polar and temperate regions create some of the most spectacular animal movements in Earth's history. Massive herds of herbivorous dinosaurs follow ancient routes that span thousands of miles, timing their movements to take advantage of optimal feeding conditions in different regions. These migrations connect the polar ecosystems with the rest of the Cretaceous world, facilitating genetic exchange and the flow of nutrients across vast distances. Marine reptiles adapted to cooler waters show different characteristics from their tropical cousins. Many are smaller and more compact, with enhanced insulation and behavioral adaptations for surviving in darker, colder waters. The seasonal blooms of marine plankton during the polar summer create feeding opportunities that attract marine reptiles from across the globe. Perhaps most intriguingly, the polar regions serve as refugia for species that have been displaced from lower latitudes by changing environmental conditions. The fossil record suggests that some groups of dinosaurs and other organisms survived in polar regions long after they disappeared from more equatorial areas, creating living museums of ancient biodiversity. As you experience the transition from the endless daylight of polar summer to the gradual onset of polar winter, you gain a profound appreciation for the resilience and adaptability of Cretaceous life. The fact that complex ecosystems could thrive under such extreme conditions speaks to the incredible evolutionary plasticity of life during this remarkable period in Earth's history. Following ancient waterways that snake across the Cretaceous continents like living arteries, you discover river systems of incredible size and complexity that dwarf anything in the modern world. These great rivers, fed by the abundant rainfall of the greenhouse climate, create dynamic ecosystems that support an extraordinary diversity of life and serve as highways for the movement of organisms across vast continental distances. Ice with siva resi seven of into fontes in seven ters ever muodesi need in the modern world. The river you follow is enormous and in places. It spreads more than a mile wide, with slow-moving water the color of tea due to the tannins leached from the abundant vegetation along its banks. The banks themselves are lined with gallery forests of giant conifers and early flowering trees, their roots extending deep into the water-saturated soil. These riparian forests create corridors of lush vegetation that extend far inland, supporting communities of organisms that depend on the reliable water supply. The aquatic life in these great rivers is nothing short of spectacular. Massive freshwater sharks patrol the deeper channels, some species reaching lengths of over 20 feet. These are not the coastal marine sharks you might expect, but specialized freshwater forms that have evolved to exploit the abundant fish populations in these continental river systems. Crocodilians of incredible diversity and size inhabit every available aquatic niche. Some species are giants that rival marine crocodiles in size, while others have evolved into specialized fish eaters with narrow gharial-like snouts. The largest of these, Sarcosuchus, can reach lengths of over 40 feet, making it one of the most formidable predators in the Cretaceous world. But perhaps the most remarkable sight is the dinosaurs that have adapted to life in and around these great rivers. Spinosaurus, the massive sail-backed theropod, wades through the shallows like a living pier, its powerful tail propelling it through the water as it hunts for fish. The sight of a 50-foot predator moving gracefully through the water challenges every preconception about dinosaur behavior and ecology. The herbivorous dinosaurs too show remarkable adaptations to riverine life. Herds of duck-billed dinosaurs spend much of their time in the water, using their broad, flat bills to filter algae and aquatic plants from the river bottom. Their webbed feet and powerful tails make them surprisingly capable swimmers, and they use the rivers as highways for long-distance migrations. The seasonal rhythms of these great rivers create dynamic ecosystems that change dramatically throughout the year. During flood seasons, vast areas of forest are inundated, creating temporary wetlands that support their own unique communities of organisms. Fish populations explode in these seasonal wetlands, providing abundant food for the numerous predators that time their reproductive cycles to coincide with these periods of plenty. The rivers also serve as nurseries for countless species. Sandbars and oxbow lakes provide safe havens for young fish, amphibians, and reptiles, while the dense vegetation along the banks offers protection and abundant food for juvenile dinosaurs and other terrestrial vertebrates. The complex three-dimensional structure of the riparian habitat creates numerous microenvironments, each supporting its own specialized community of organisms. As you travel downstream, you observe the changing character of the river ecosystem. In the upper reaches, the water flows swiftly over rocky substrates, creating habitat for organisms adapted to high-energy environments. As the river enters the lowlands, it slows and becomes more meandering, creating backwaters and wetlands that support very different communities of organisms. The deltas where these great rivers empty into ancient seas are perhaps the most productive ecosystems in the Cretaceous world. The mixing of fresh and salt water creates estuarine environments that support incredible diversity and abundance of life. These deltas serve as critical nursery areas for marine organisms and as stopover points for migrating species. The transport of sediments and nutrients by these river systems has profound effects on both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. The rivers carry enormous loads of organic matter from the continental interiors to the seas, supporting marine food webs and creating the conditions for massive marine productivity. This connection between terrestrial and marine realms demonstrates the integrated nature of Cretaceous ecosystems. As the great rivers carry you toward the sea, you find yourself transported to one of the most fascinating and unique environments of the Cretaceous world, the island archipelagos that dot the shallow seas covering much of what will someday become Europe and Central Asia. These islands, created by the higher sea levels of the greenhouse world, have become laboratories for evolution, where isolation has led to the development of extraordinary endemic species found nowhere else on Earth. You arrive on a tropical island that emerges from crystal clear waters like a green jewel. The island is relatively small, Nice's perhaps only a few dozen miles across, but it supports an entire ecosystem that has evolved in splendid isolation for millions of years. The effects of this isolation are immediately apparent in the unique characteristics of the dinosaurs and other organisms you encounter. The most striking feature of island dinosaur faunas is the phenomenon of dwarfism. Many species that grow to enormous sizes on the mainland have evolved into miniature forms on the islands where resources are limited and large size is actually a disadvantage. You encounter herds of dwarf sauropods, some no larger than horses, grazing peacefully on the island's vegetation. These tiny giants retain all the proportions and characteristics of their massive mainland relatives, but have been scaled down to fit their island environment. The predators too show remarkable adaptations to island life. Dwarf tyrannosaurs, standing only 6 feet tall but retaining all the fierce hunting instincts of their giant relatives, patrol the island forests. Their smaller size allows them to navigate dense vegetation and hunt the abundant small prey that characterizes island ecosystems. But not all island adaptations involve size reduction. Some species have evolved in the opposite direction, developing unusual gigantism in response to the absence of their normal predators or competitors. You observe giant flightless birds, descendants of early flying forms that have lost the ability to fly but have grown to impressive sizes in the absence of mammalian competitors. The plant life of the islands shows its own unique adaptations. Many species have evolved unusual dispersal mechanisms that allow them to colonize new islands when the opportunity arises. Some have developed seeds that can survive long periods in salt water, while others have formed partnerships with the few flying animals that can travel between islands. The marine life surrounding the islands is spectacularly diverse. The warm, clear waters support coral reefs of incredible beauty and complexity. These Cretaceous reefs are dominated not by modern corals but by rudists, bizarre bivalve mollusks that have evolved to form reef-like structures. The reefs provide habitat for countless species of fish, marine reptiles, and invertebrates. The lagoons between the islands and reefs create perfect nursery areas for marine life. You observe young marine reptiles including baby mosasaurs and plesiosaurs learning to hunt in the safety of the shallow predator-free waters. These lagoons also serve as rookeries for pterosaurs which nest on the small islets and feed in the productive waters. The isolation of these island ecosystems has led to the evolution of remarkable behavioral adaptations as well as physical ones. Many island species have lost their fear of predators, becoming remarkably tame and approachable. Others have developed complex social behaviors that help them make the most of limited resources. The seasonal patterns on the islands are different from those on the mainland, influenced more by marine conditions than by terrestrial weather patterns. The timing of reproduction, migration, and other activities is coordinated with ocean currents, storm patterns, and other marine phenomena. Some of the most fascinating island inhabitants are the species that have retained the ability to travel between islands. Flying reptiles and early birds serve as the primary links between island ecosystems, carrying genetic material, seeds, and sometimes even small animals from one island to another. These mobile species prevent the island biotas from becoming completely isolated and facilitate the colonization of new islands as they emerge from the sea. The vulnerability of island ecosystems is also apparent. Changes in sea level, volcanic activity, or ocean currents can dramatically affect these isolated communities. You observe islands in various stages of ecological development. Some are mature ecosystems with high diversity, while others are in the early stages of colonization by pioneer species. As you explore multiple islands in the archipelago, you begin to understand the principles of island biogeography in action. Whole larger islands support more species than smaller ones, and islands closer to the mainland have more diverse faunas than those that are more isolated. Each island represents a unique experiment in evolution, a test of how life adapts to isolation and limited resources. Your journey through the diverse landscapes of the Cretaceous world brings you to one of its most productive and vibrant ecosystems, the vast wetlands that characterize much of the low-lying continental areas during this period of high sea levels. These wetlands stretch for hundreds of miles, creating a maze of shallow waters, emergent vegetation, and seasonal floods that support an incredible diversity of life. The wetlands represent a perfect compromise between terrestrial and aquatic environments, providing the benefits of both while avoiding the limitations of either. The water is shallow enough to allow rooted vegetation to flourish, yet deep enough to support large aquatic organisms. The result is an ecosystem of incredible productivity where life exists in almost unimaginable abundance. Giant water lilies spread their leaves across the surface, some with pads large enough to support the weight of a small dinosaur. Emergent cattail-like plants tower overhead, creating dense stands that provide nesting sites for countless species. Early flowering aquatic plants add splashes of color to the green monotony, their blooms attracting clouds of insects. The water itself teems with life. Schools of primitive fish, their scales flashing silver in the filtered sunlight, move through the vegetation like living clouds. Early amphibians, some as large as crocodiles, lurk among the roots and stems, waiting to ambush unwary prey. The diversity of freshwater life is staggering. Every available niche seems to be occupied by some specialized organism. But it's the dinosaurs that truly make these wetlands special. That herds of duck-billed hadrosaurs wade through the shallows, their broad bills perfectly adapted for filtering nutritious algae. Small organisms from the water holes net water speak. Their calls, produced by the elaborate crests that crown their heads, echo across the wetlands in haunting harmonies that can be heard for miles. The predators of the wetlands have evolved remarkable adaptations for hunting in this unique environment. Baryonyx, a crocodile-like theropod with massive claws on its hands, hunts fish and other aquatic prey with techniques that seem more suited to a bear than a dinosaur. Its long, narrow snout is perfect for catching slippery fish, while its powerful claws can pin down large prey or dig for shellfish in the muddy bottom. The wetlands also support an incredible diversity of pterosaurs, many of which have specialized for different aspects of wetland life. Some species, like flying herons, wade through the shallows on long legs, using their spear-like beaks to catch fish. Others, more like pelicans, dive from the air to catch prey in their massive pouched beaks. Still others filter feed like flamingos, straining small organisms from the water with specialized bills. The seasonal cycles of the wetlands create a dynamic environment that changes dramatically throughout the year. During the dry season, water levels drop and many areas areas become temporarily terrestrial, allowing different plant communities to establish themselves. When the rains return and water levels rise, these terrestrial plants become the foundation for a new burst of aquatic productivity. The breeding seasons in the wetlands are spectacular events that attract organisms from hundreds of miles away. Massive congregations of dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and other animals gather to take advantage of the abundant food and safe nesting sites. The sounds of these gatherings, the calls of thousands of individuals trying to find mates and establish territories, create a cacophony that can be overwhelming to experience. The wetlands serve as crucial stopover points for migrating species, providing food and rest for animals traveling between distant breeding and feeding areas. The predictable productivity of these ecosystems makes them reliable oases in an otherwise challenging world, and many species have evolved migration routes that connect chains of wetlands across the continents. The nutrient cycling in wetland ecosystems is incredibly efficient. The combination of aquatic and terrestrial processes, along with the high productivity of wetland plants, creates systems that can support far more life than either purely terrestrial or purely aquatic environments. This efficiency makes wetlands among the most important ecosystems in the Cretaceous world. As you spend time in these wetland paradises, you begin to understand their crucial role in the larger Cretaceous ecosystem. They serve as nurseries for countless species, refugia during times of environmental stress, and highways for the movement of organisms across the landscape. The abundance and diversity of life they support is truly breathtaking, representing one of evolution's greatest success stories. Leaving the productive lowlands behind, you find yourself climbing into the mountainous regions of the Cretaceous world, where a completely different set of environmental challenges has led to the evolution of unique communities of organisms. The mountains of this ancient world are younger and more active than most modern ranges, with frequent volcanic activity and rapid geological changes that create a dynamic and challenging environment for life. As you ascend through different elevational zones, you witness dramatic changes in both climate and vegetation. The warm, humid conditions of the lowlands give way to cooler, drier air as you climb higher. The plant communities change accordingly, with heat-loving tropical species being replaced by more temperate forms adapted to the cooler mountain climate. The dinosaur communities of the mountains show remarkable adaptations to the challenging terrain and climate. You encounter species with enhanced respiratory systems that allow them to function efficiently in the thin air of high altitudes. Many mountain dinosaurs have developed more compact, muscular builds that give them better stability and maneuverability on steep, rocky terrain. High-altitude herbivores like certain ceratopsians have evolved specialized digestive systems that allow them to extract maximum nutrition from the sparse fibrous vegetation that characterizes mountain environments. Their behavior too shows adaptations to mountain life. They tend to move in smaller groups and follow well-established trails that minimize energy expenditure while navigating difficult terrain. The predators of the mountains face unique challenges in hunting prey, that can use the complex three-dimensional terrain to their advantage. Many mountain theropods have evolved enhanced agility and climbing abilities, with some species showing almost cat-like grace as they navigate rocky outcrops and steep slopes in pursuit of prey. The isolation of mountain environments has led to high levels of endemism, with many species found nowhere else. Mountain valleys separated by high ridges function as evolutionary islands, leading to the development of distinct subspecies and sometimes entirely new species. This process of isolation and speciation is particularly evident in smaller dinosaurs and other organisms with limited dispersal abilities. The plant life of the mountains shows its own remarkable adaptations to harsh conditions. Many species have evolved compact, cushion-like growth forms that help them conserve moisture and withstand strong winds. Others have developed deep root systems that allow them to access water stored in rocky crevices and fractures. The seasonal patterns in mountain environments are more extreme than those in the lowlands, with greater temperature fluctuations and more variable precipitation. Many mountain species have evolved behavioral and physiological adaptations that allow them to cope with these extremes, including migration patterns that follow optimal conditions up and down the mountain slopes. The volcanic activity that characterizes many Cretaceous mountain ranges creates unique habitats and opportunities. Hot springs and fumaroles support communities of thermophilic organisms, while recent lava flows provide substrate for pioneer species that specialize in colonizing disturbed habitats. The minerals released by volcanic activity also create soils with unique chemical properties that support specialized plant communities. The view from the mountain peaks provides a perspective on the Cretaceous world that is impossible to achieve from ground level. You can see the vast extent of the wetlands and forests, the meandering courses of the great rivers, and the distant glimmer of ancient seas. This aerial perspective helps you understand the connections between different ecosystems and the pathways that organisms use to move across the landscape. The mountain environments also serve as important watershed areas, collecting precipitation. The mountains act as water towers for the Cretaceous world, storing water during wet periods and releasing it gradually during drier times. Holsken servant to Novengition, into Nivengition to Nivengition to Nivengition. As you spend time in these highland environments, you gain a deep appreciation for the diversity of conditions that existed during the Cretaceous period. Far from being a uniformly warm tropical world, this ancient Earth supported a full range of climates and environments, each with its own unique communities of organisms perfectly adapted to local conditions. As your journey through the Cretaceous world draws toward its close, you begin to notice subtle signs that this magnificent era is approaching its end. Though the dinosaurs around you continue their daily routines, unaware of what the future holds, you can sense the changes that are beginning to affect their world, and changes that will ultimately lead to one of the most dramatic events in Earth's history. The signs are subtle at first. No slightly cooler temperatures in regions that have been uniformly warm, changes in the patterns of rainfall and seasonal weather, and the gradual disappearance of some species that have been common for millions of years. The great inland seas that have covered much of the continents are beginning to recede as global temperatures slowly decline and ice begins to form at the poles for the first time in many millions of years. The volcanic activity that has been a constant feature of the Cretaceous world is intensifying, particularly in what will someday become India. Massive eruptions are pouring enormous quantities of lava across the landscape, creating the Deccan Traps, one of the largest volcanic formations in Earth's history. The gases released by this volcanism are beginning to affect the global climate, adding to the stress on ecosystems that are already adapting to gradual cooling. But perhaps the most ominous sign is one that you cannot see: a dark object hurtling through space toward Earth, still millions of miles away, but approaching with the inexorable certainty of gravity. This asteroid, roughly 6 miles in diameter, will arrive in what geologists will someday call the End Cretaceous impact event, bringing the age of dinosaurs to a sudden and catastrophic end. Yet for now, life continues in all its magnificent diversity. The great herds of herbivorous dinosaurs still migrate across the continents, following routes established millions of years ago. Even massive predators still hunt with the efficiency honed by countless generations of evolution. The skies still teem with pterosaurs and early birds, and the seas still support their incredible diversity of marine reptiles. You witness what may be some of the last great spectacles of the dinosaur age, in a massive nesting colony of duck-billed dinosaurs containing thousands of individuals, a migration of ceratopsians that stretches to the horizon, a feeding aggregation of marine reptiles that turns the sea into a cauldron of activity. These scenes of abundance and vitality make the coming extinction even more poignant. The flowering plants continue their revolution, diversifying into new forms and establishing the partnerships with pollinators that will carry them through the coming catastrophe. The small mammals that scurry through the underbrush continue to evolve and diversify, developing the characteristics that will allow some of them to survive what their giant contemporaries cannot. The early birds too are evolving rapidly, experimenting with new body plans and ecological strategies. Some of these experiments will prove to be dead ends, but others will establish the foundations for the incredible diversity of birds that will inherit the post-dinosaur world. As you observe these final chapters of the Cretaceous world, you're struck by the resilience and adaptability of life. Even as conditions change and new challenges emerge, organisms continue to evolve new solutions and explore new possibilities. The end of the dinosaur age will be a tragedy of immense proportions, but it will also be the beginning of new opportunities for the groups that survive. The impact that will end the Cretaceous period is still months away, but when it comes it will change everything in a matter of hours. The flash of impact will be visible halfway around the world, followed by darkness that will last for months as debris blocks out the sun. The great food webs that have supported the dinosaurs for 160 million years will collapse and the age of mammals will begin. But for now, in these final moments of the Cretaceous world, the dinosaurs continue their ancient routines, unaware that they are living in the last chapter of their incredible story. To version duishtenu bedno, holiday can do faimobi inshane of holiday can do stenu bedu inshane, holiday can do sign you bedu. Holiday can do faimobi inshane of holiday can do sign you bedu. Holiday can do sign you bedu. Holiday can do faimobi inshane of holiday can do sign you bedu faimo sonya. The sun still shines on their magnificent forms, the flowers still bloom under their feet, and the ancient rhythms of life continue as they have for millions of years. As the soft light of the Cretaceous evening fades around you, and the ancient sounds of this primeval world begin to blur and soften into the gentle rhythms of your own breathing, you find yourself slowly drifting back through the vast corridors of time. The magnificent creatures that have been your companions on this journey, Aladu, the towering sauropods with their gentle eyes, the fierce predators with their calculated intelligence, the graceful pterosaurs soaring through pristine skies, all begin to fade like figures in a dream, but they do not disappear entirely. As you settle deeper into the embrace of sleep, they remain with you, these ambassadors from deep time, carrying messages from an Earth so different from our own that it seems like another planet entirely. The warm, humid air that you breathe, thick with the scent of unfamiliar flowers and the musk of creatures long extinct, continues to fill your lungs in memory. The ground that trembled under the footsteps of giants still vibrates beneath your consciousness. You have walked through forests where no human footprint has ever fallen, where the very concept of humanity was still 60 million years in the future. You have witnessed ecosystems of such complexity and beauty that they challenge every assumption about the nature of life itself. You have seen cooperation and competition, predation and symbiosis, playing out on scales that dwarf anything in the modern world. The small mammals that scurried through the Cretaceous underbrush, so easily overlooked among the giants, carry within their genes the potential for every mammal that will ever live, including the lineage that will eventually lead to you. The early birds whose songs echoed through ancient forests are the ancestors of every bird that graces our modern skies. Even the insects that pollinated the first flowers established patterns of behavior and coevolution that continue to this day. As you drift deeper into sleep, the boundaries between past and present begin to dissolve. The dinosaurs that lived 100 million years ago are no more extinct than you will be in 100 million years hence. Time is a river that flows in all directions, and in the realm of dreams and imagination, all moments exist simultaneously. The Triassic dawn, the Jurassic giants, the Cretaceous flowerings, all are as real and immediate as the bed in which you now rest. Perhaps this is the greatest gift that paleontology offers us, not just knowledge of the past, but perspective on our place in the vast sweep of natural history. We are not the culmination of evolution, but simply the current chapter in a story that began billions of years ago and will continue for billions more. The Earth has seen the rise and fall of countless dynasties of life, each perfectly adapted to their time, each believing in their own permanence. The dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 160 million years, and the span of time so vast that it encompasses the entire history of mammalian dominance many times over. During their reign, they evolved into forms of such diversity and magnificence that our imaginations can barely encompass them. They developed complex social behaviors, sophisticated communication systems, and ecological relationships of incredible intricacy. Yet they too passed into history, making way for new forms of life to flourish. Their extinction was not a failure, but simply another turn of the great wheel of time. The impact that ended their reign also opened new opportunities for the small, warm-blooded creatures that had lived in their shadows for so long. From the ashes of the dinosaur age arose the age of mammals, and eventually the age of human consciousness that allows us to look back and marvel at what came before. You feel the warm Cretaceous rain on your face and hear the haunting calls of creatures whose voices have been silent for millions of years. You witness the endless dance of predator and prey, the patient growth of forests that will never know the sound of human voices, the migration of herds across landscapes that exist now only in stone. The volcanic eruptions that punctuated the Mesozoic era continue to glow on the horizon of your sleeping mind, reminding you that the Earth itself is alive, constantly reshaping itself through forces that dwarf any human endeavor. The great inland seas rise and fall with the rhythm of geological time, covering and uncovering continents with the patience of eternity. And in the depth of your slumber, you understand something profound about the nature of existence itself. You are not separate from this ancient world, you are part of it, connected by an unbroken chain of inheritance that stretches back to the very origins of life. The atoms in your body were forged in the hearts of ancient stars, and the molecules that make up your cells have been recycling through Earth's systems for billions of years. You have been, in various forms, part of countless other creatures throughout deep time. The calcium in your bones may once have been part of the shell of a Cretaceous ammonite. The carbon in your DNA may have cycled through the leaves of Jurassic cycads and the flesh of Triassic archosaurs. You are quite literally made of stardust and ancient life, a temporary arrangement of matter that has been dancing through the cosmos since the beginning of time. This perspective brings not insignificance but profound meaning. You are part of a story so vast and beautiful that it encompasses the entire history of the universe. Every breath you take connects you to the atmosphere that dinosaurs breathed, to the oxygen produced by ancient plants, to the cosmic processes that formed the very elements of which you are made. The dinosaurs may be gone, but they are not truly extinct. They live on in the birds that sing outside your window, in the crocodiles that represent their ancient Archosaurian lineage, and in the fossil record that preserves their stories in stone. They live on in the ecosystems they help to shape, in the co-evolutionary relationships they established with plants and other organisms, and in the lessons they teach us about adaptation and resilience. Most importantly, they live on in the sense of wonder they inspire, in the questions they raise about the nature of life and time, and in the humility they teach us about our place in the grand scheme of existence. Into folk of case in the grand scheme of existence. They remind us that life is far more creative, resilient and magnificent than we often imagine, and that the earth has the capacity to support forms of existence that stretch the very limits of possibility. As you sink deeper into the healing darkness of sleep, carry with you the knowledge that you have been privileged to witness something extraordinary, a world that existed in deep time, when the earth was young and life was experimenting with forms and possibilities that no longer exist. You have walked among giants and marveled at their grace, witnessed the delicate beauty of the first flowers, and heard the songs of creatures whose voices echo now only in stone. The Cretaceous night settles around you like a familiar blanket, filled with the gentle sounds of an ancient world at rest. Somewhere in the darkness a small mammal calls to its mate, carrying in its genes the future of all mammalian life. Somewhere above, a pterosaur glides silently through the star-filled sky, master of an aerial realm that will soon belong to others. Somewhere in the distance, the great herbivores settle down for the night, their massive forms becoming part of the landscape they help to shape. And you, time traveler, bridge between worlds, rest among them, dreaming the deep dreams of geological time, where moments stretch into epochs and epochs compress into heartbeats. In your sleeping mind, all of Earth's history unfolds simultaneously, the formation of the first oceans, the emergence of life, the great extinctions and radiations that have marked the passage of eons. You dream of oceans without shores and continents without mountains, of atmospheres both poisonous and life-giving, of ice ages and greenhouse worlds, of the slow dance of evolution that has produced every creature that has ever lived. You dream of the future as well as the past, of forms of life yet to evolve, of possibilities yet to be explored, of wonders yet to be discovered.